Well, hello Moonies! Welcome to part 4 in my series Watch Sailor Stars Learn Japanese, where we go over the first episode of Sailor Stars from Sailor Moon Classic, and I break down the dialogue one word at a time to teach Japanese and to show the translation process. So just a note before we get started, if you're unfamiliar with this series, it is meant for Japanese learners at the intermediate to advanced-ish level. I do breeze through some of the easier grammar points and vocabulary that I kind of expect you to know if you're past beginner level Japanese. So if this series is a little too hard for you, I do have some series on this channel for beginners that you can check out in the video description. Also, if you want to get more out of this series, I do have a Patreon, and for as little as $2 a month, you can join my Sailor Moon group, where I send you a Sailor Moon song once a month, and I break down the translation one word at a time, much like I do this episode, and you can learn Japanese that way too. Now let's get started. When we last left our villains, Nehelenia and the mysterious disembodied voice, were talking. The disembodied voice was getting Nehelenia angry that Usagi and her posse are doing well on Earth. Neherenia thought that they were dead, but the voice is like, nope, they're still alive and they're doing really well. Don't you want revenge? And the disembodied voice makes this mirror materialize. Neherenia says, これは? What is this?
それこそあなたの心。憎しみや恨みの結晶ともいうべき漆黒の鏡。
The voice says, "Oh, それこそあなたの心." So koso we've gone over before in the series. It means that is the very thing that is. So それこそ, that thing next to you, Neherenia, that mirror, is the very thing that, emphasis, that is あなたの心, your heart, your soul, your mind. And so I translated that as that is your heart. I just emphasized the that to show the koso concept. 憎しみや恨みの結晶ともいうべき. So 憎しみ is hatred, urami is a grudge, and then kesshou is like a crystallization. So a crystallization of your hatred and your grudge, your bitterness. ともいうべき. So ともいうべき is like, or should I say, or it would be more appropriate to say. Beki means like should. いうべき would mean should say. So, or rather, should say it's this thing. So I translated that as rather, that is a crystallization of your hatred and resentment. Shikkoku no kagami. So Shikkoku is like jet black, and then kagami, this is going to come up a lot in this episode, mirror. So a jet black mirror.
Warawa no kokoro.
Neherenia says, Warawa no kokoro. If you've seen former episodes of the series, you'll know Warawa is like an older, more regal version of I. And then kokoro, oh, my soul. This is my heart, I translated it as. I went with heart instead of soul because Sailor Moon in general tends to be more like heart this, heart that, so heart.
さあ、その鏡を叩き割るがいい。そうすればあなたの復讐は果たされ、すべてがうまくいく。
The voice says, さあ、その鏡を叩き割るがいい. So I think we went over this verb ga i structure in a former episode in this series as well. That means you should do this verb. It is best that you do this verb. And it's a more regal, old sort of way of saying you should do that. It's more like literary sounding. It's not casual, conversational Japanese. So waru is to smash or to break. Tataki-waru is to smash break. So, sono kagami, that mirror, you should smash it. So I translated that as, now break the mirror to pieces. I added the two pieces part, just the tataki and the waru together. Waru means like to break apart. Tataki or tataku is like more to hit something. So hit it so that it smashes. So break it to pieces is a better way of translating that verb combination. She goes on to say, そうすれば, if you do that, あなたの復讐は果たされ. So fukushuu is revenge. Fukushuuを果たす is like to actualize your revenge or to avenge, to get revenge. Hatasare is the passive voice. So your revenge will come to fruition. Or in better English, then you shall have your revenge. And then she continues, すべてがうまくいく. So うまくいく or うまくゆく. The yuku, it just sounds grander than iku. You'll find that in song lyrics a lot. Iku changes to yuku. すべてがうまくいく is it's a set phrase meaning everything will go well, everything will go just the way you want it to. But I translated that as, and all your dreams will come true. callback to Super's the season all about dreams and dream mirrors. So I felt that it would be apt to make everything go well as kind of a vague wording. I think all your dreams come true. I think just it works better for Sailor Moon lore and for Neherenia and the mirrors and everything. Fukushuu. Neherenia repeats fukushuu, revenge, but I translated that as my revenge. Again, just to make it more personal for her, raise the stakes a little bit, not just, oh, revenge, but my revenge.
あなたの鏡の破片が降り注いだその時、白き月の者が愛したあの地上に極上の恐怖と絶望が広がる。
The voice says, あなたの鏡の破片. So hahen are fragments. That's going to come up a few times in this episode, so remember that. あなたの鏡の破片が降り注いだその時. So furisosoida is the past tense of furisosogu, which is to rain down. Sonotoki, so whenever you have again, this sounds a bit poetic. You'll see this in song lyrics a lot. Something, 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 verb in past tense, sonotoki. So it's a way of saying when this verb happens, but it's just a more poetic way of saying it. This verb, when it has happened. It sounds cooler that way to reverse that. So the moment the fragments of your mirror touch the earth, 白き月の者が愛したその地上に. This is a very long run-on sentence, so this is a continuation of the first part of the sentence. 白き月, so remember, this has come up a few times before. If you want to change an E adjective to like the old, romantic, by that I mean romantic era, not romantic as in like lovey-dovey, but King James Bible, as I said in the last episode of this series. So shiroi becomes shiroki. It means white. Shirokitsuki, the white moon. No mono, so again, this mono, this has come up a lot as well. It is not thing, it is person or people. So the ones of the white moon, ga aishita, ano chijou. So that Earth's surface, ano chijou, the Earth's surface that the ones of the white moon loved. So this aishita is modifying ano chijou, that Earth's surface that we're looking down at right now. So the Earth that those of the white moon loved so this is like continuation of the run-on sentence. You'll see how it all fits together pretty soon. The final part of the run-on sentence, 極上の恐怖と絶望が広がる. So 極上の is like supreme, ultimate, the biggest. 恐怖と絶望, wonderful, happy words. 恐怖 is like terror, fear, and then 絶望 is despair. が広がる. So to 広がる is to spread out, like everywhere. So I translated that as supreme terror and despair shall plague the planet. I used plague as a verb for hirogaru because we're talking about just terrible, terrible things spreading throughout the earth, and like plaguing is better. It's like a disease. You get that imagery in there.
その鏡を割るのです。割るのです。割るのです。割るのだ!
And the voice says, さあ、その鏡を割るのです. So, you know all these vocabulary words already because we covered them. Sa, come, now. Sono kagami, that mirror of yours that is near you. Waru, to break. Okay, so this no des ending, if it's uttered as a command, like the voice is doing to Neherenia right now, it's like, come now, I beseech you, you shall do this, you must do this, sort of thing. It's like a matter-of-fact command. So I just translated that as now, break the mirror. Just a very solid, to the point command. And then she goes on, waru no desu, waru no desu. So remember the last part of this series where Neherenia was just like repeating over and over again, yurusenu, 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 yurusenu. We're kind of getting just a call back to that repeating. We're showing that these two evil people are kind of unhinged and kind of evil. So waru no desu, she's just repeating that command, break it. Break it. And then she screams, ware! Which is just a different way of, it's an imperative, ware, the command, just break it. And then even louder. You thought that was the loudest that she could get. Nope. We're getting even zanier. Warunda! So this warunda, believe it or not, is actually the exact same grammar as waru no des. The no turns into and the desu turns into da. So all that really does is waru no desu is a little more feminine and a little more polite. But warunda is very rough, it's not so feminine, and it is definitely not polite. So she's being kind of polite and commanding, like polite but firm when she's saying waru no desu, waru no desu. But by the time she goes ware, she's like, come on, break it. And then warunda, it's like, just fucking break it already. And it's like, if this were not a kid's show, that's kind of the sentiment that we're getting into here with warunda. But this is cool sounding English by cool villains, and it's a kid's show, so I just translated it as break it now in all caps. Neherenia breaks the mirror.
これでお前はもう二度とこの悪夢から覚めることはない。
And then the disembodied voice is very pleased, because that's what she wanted Neherenia to do all along. これでお前はもう二度とこの悪夢から覚めることはない. There's one long big sentence, but unfortunately for subtitle's sake I had to break it into two separate thoughts. So let's look at it at two separate thoughts. これでお前はもう二度と, first part. So これで, with this, like now that you have done this thing. お前は, so お前 is sort of like that. I'm looking down on Neherenia if I call her omae. She is beneath me. The voice is clearly considers herself superior to Neherenia. I mean, that's already been relatively established, but yeah, it's like, you fool, you pitiful woman. Omae wa mou nidoto. So mou nidoto is a set phrase that means never more, never again. So I translated this as your fate has been sealed, because again, I'm trying to break up this long sentence into two separate subtitles that read well and that have a good punch. So we're going to finish the thought. So the rest of the thought, もうこれでお前はもう二度とこの悪夢から覚めることはない. So この悪夢, this nightmare, から覚める. So that means to wake from this nightmare. So この悪夢から覚めることはない. So ことはない with this 覚めることはない is like, it shall never be the case that you will wake from this nightmare, or you shall never wake from this nightmare ever again. The whole sentence together is, now that you have smashed the mirror, that's sort of the subtext, これで, now that you have smashed the mirror, omae, you fool, you person who's beneath me, nevermore will you wake from this nightmare again. So I split that up into two separate thoughts. Your fate has been sealed. That's sort of the これで and the もう二度と. It's like これで, like now that you have done this thing, もう二度と, nevermore, as in your fate has been sealed. It cannot be changed. So that's how I got your fate has been sealed from that, even though that's not what これでお前はもう二度と actually means. That's just how I got that. Now you shall never wake from this nightmare ever again. So basically this second line is like what that two part of the sentence is smashed all together. I just think it looks silly if you're reading subtitles and you have like, now you shall never ... wake from this nightmare ever again. It just doesn't have the same punch, I feel, as a viewer watching something and reading subtitles. So I tend to prefer to make complete sentences in cases like this. I just think it reads better and it's cooler, has more impact. And I haven't really changed the meaning. Meanwhile, Chibiusa innocently thinks she's about to go back home to the 30th century.
それじゃあね。流星だ。綺麗。
So she says, それじゃあね. Well, bye. Mako says, 流星だ. So 流星 is shooting star. If you look at the kanji, it's the kanji for ame or rain. So 流星, it's shooting star rain, otherwise a meteor shower. It's a meteor shower. Minako says, 綺麗. So this is a prime example of how Japanese sentences are often comprised of just like one word. This is just an adjective, pretty. But, you know, in English, we wouldn't usually just say pretty. I don't know, sometimes we might, but I translate it as, it's so pretty, just because that's more natural sounding.
珍しいな、こんなにたくさん。
少し多すぎるわ。なんだろう、この胸騒ぎ。
Mamo-chan says, 珍しいな、こんなにたくさん. So, 珍しいな, that's like one thought by itself. 珍しい means how unusual, how rare. こんなに, like this much to this extent, たくさん, a lot. So I've never seen so many at once. That's odd. Then Ami, she's kind of picking up, like, this isn't right. 少し多すぎるわ. So the wa is this sort of emphatic feminine ending to her sentence. She's being a bit authoritative here. She knows. She's the smart one. She knows. 少し多すぎる. 多すぎる, too many. 少し is a little bit, it's a little bit too many shooting stars. And I translated that as a bit too many, I think. The I think, the comma I think kind of goes with the wa ending. It's just this kind of slightly like, I'm authoritative and I'm effeminate. And then Rei senses bad vibes. なんだろう、この胸騒ぎ. So in proper grammar, it would be この胸騒ぎはなんだろう. But it sounds kind of cool and emphasizes different things if you flip the two parts of the sentence. So なんだろう、この胸騒ぎ. So この胸騒ぎ is this panic, this racing, this anxiety in my heart. And then なんだろう, what is it? So what's this panic I feel in my chest? I kept the word order kind of the same. What is this panic I feel in my chest rather than this panic in my chest? What is it? And then Mamo-chan gets, I hate watching this scene. I would always go, when this happened. The glass shard goes into his eye.
いた。
マモちゃん
目にゴミが入ったかな。
見せて。
大丈夫だよ。もう取れたから。
And then he says, ita. That's just short for itai, which means to hurt, and it's how Japanese people say ouch. Usagi says, Mamo-chan. Mamo-chan says, 目にゴミが入ったかな? 目にゴミが入る is like to get gunk in your eye. Gomi is like gunk, trash. 入った elementary level verb, to enter. So I think I got some gunk in my eye. Usagi says, 見せて, let me see. Mamo-chan says, 大丈夫だよ. Like, I'm fine. I'm okay. もう取れたから. So 取れた is I was able to take it. And then mo is already. It's like, oh, I already got it out. So I translated that whole thing as 大丈夫だよ. I'm okay. It's gone now. Even though it's not, because you see his eye go so creepy.
どうした？さあ、ちびうさを送り出してあげよう。
And then he goes, どうした? What's wrong? And then he says, さあ, again this さあ, now, come on. ちびうさを送り出してあげよう. So 送り出す is to send someone off. And then he's adding the あげる suffix to that. I did a video on this in my Nihongo 2 series a while back. If you do the te form of a verb and then add ageru to the end of it, it means you're doing a verb for somebody else. So he's saying, hey, let's send Chibiusa off for her as a gesture to be generous. So, さあ、Chibiusaを送り出してあげよう. Come on, let's say goodbye to Chibiusa. Usagi says, okay.
何これ
Chibiusa says, 何これ? What's going on? そんな, you know, you've probably seen this subtitle a zillion different ways because it can be subtitled a zillion different ways. そんな is like this kind of. You could follow it up with any words like this sort of thing is impossible. This sort of thing makes me angry. This sort of thing makes me happy. It could be anything. So oh no in this case. Oh my God works too. Usually no, like oh no is usually the way in which そんな is used.
ちびうさどうなってんのわかんない私たち帰れないのですか
Usagi says, Chibiusa, どうなってんの? What happened? This kind of means like what's happening, what's going on, but something kind of happened narratively. So that's kind of why I translated it as what happened instead of what's happening. Chibiusa says, わかんない, I don't know. Diana, in her very prim and proper Japanese, says, 私たち帰れないのですか? Oh God, I hate her voice so much. Anyway, 私たち us 帰れない so cannot return のですか? So in this case, the no des ending is not a command. It's like she's asking for an explanation, basically. Oh, is the explanation that now as a result of what has just happened, can we now no longer go home? So I translated that as, are we unable to return home?
時空の道が消えちゃうなんて
Chibiusa says, 時空の道が消えちゃうなんて. So anytime you have a sentence with なんて and the character is just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. That's kind of what the なんて serves, is like, in like bad Shakespearean English, it's like to think that da 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 da, and often bad translations will have it translated that way. Chibiusa is not the kind of person who would say to think that the door to space-time would disappear. And this isn't Shakespeare, so I translated this as the door to space-time just disappeared. That's just much more natural and how Chibiusa would talk. But yeah, she's expressing disbelief. Like, jiku no michi ga kiechau nante okashi is like, usually you'd follow the nante with like an adjective like okashi, like no way, like that's bonkers. Why would the door to space-time disappear? That doesn't make sense.
もしかしてあの流星のせいなんじゃない？
そうか、エナジーが干渉されたとか。
Minako says, もしかしてあの流れ星のせいなんじゃない? So もしかして maybe, don't you think? あの流れ星 that shooting star, no se, so that shooting star's fault. Nan janai. So she's doing this nan ending to explain, to try to explain something. She's trying to tell Chibiusa, well, maybe it's this. Hey, do you think it could have been the shooting stars? And she's, nan janai. She's kind of trying to be lighthearted about it, as Minako does. Artemis says, soka. Can be translated a number of different ways. Energy ga kanshou sareta toka. So kanshou sareru is like to be interfered with. Kanshou suru would be to interfere with, and then sareru makes it passive voice. So energy ga kanshou sareta, the energy was interfered with. Toka. This toka at the end is like, he's giving a theory. It's like, oh, it could be this, or it could be some other thing that I'm not mentioning. So this toka just leaves it open. Like, oh, hey, like maybe this is why. So energy ga kanshou sareta toka. Right, soka, right. Maybe they interfered with the time key's energy. They being the shooting star.
きっと流星が止めば帰れるよ。そうよ、元気出して。
Mako-chan says, きっと流れ星が止めば帰れるよ。帰れるよ。So 帰れる versus 帰る。帰れる means can go home. So きっと surely 流れ星が止めば once the shooting star has stopped, or once the shooting stars have stopped, you'll be able to go home. So I'm sure you'll be able to go home after the shooting stars go away. Ami-chan says, そうよ、元気出して. So そうよ is like, yeah, that's right. Genki dashite, you all know that. Cheer up, chin up. So since Ami's sort of prim and proper, like I kind of see like translating her as sort of British-ish in times is appropriate for her. So I translated that as, she's right, chin up. And then Chibiusa says, okay, as the ominous jazzy music plays in the background. And that's all for this month's edition of Watch Sailor Stars Japanese. Thank you to all of the patrons who help keep this channel and this series alive. Again, you can support it for as little as $2 a month and join my Sailor Moon Song Club, where I send out monthly song translations. Next month, I'm really excited because we have a whole episode now. When I say episode, by the way, I mean like these YouTube videos. I don't mean like episodes of Sailor Moon. I mean the next YouTube video that I make in this series, the next episode, features just Sailor Uranus and Neptune, Haruka and Michiru. So I'm really excited about that. And I hope you are too, and I hope to see you next month. 月の光は愛のメッセージ.